Next on Currents News, the Pope took on the clerical sex abuse crisis as he wrapped up his Baltics mission. Reports about what he said to young people and to reporters are next. Bill Cosby, a convicted sexual predator. Today he learned how much time he'll spend in jail.
America will never apologize for protecting its citizens.
President Trump sounds the theme of America First in an address to the United Nations. An update on the Kavanaugh countdown on Capitol Hill, the Supreme Court nominee going on the offensive before Thursday's public hearing.
Everybody has living with fear all the time.
Plus, a Currents News exclusive. They broke the rules to attend the Encuentro. Two undocumented immigrants explain why they took that risk. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Pope Francis wrapped up his trip to the Baltics, but not before making big news. Francis talked with a large group of young people about the clergy sex abuse scandals before facing reporters on the plane ride home. Melissa Butt starts our coverage from St. Peter's Square.
Today, Pope Francis spoke bluntly with youth in Estonia, telling them he knows exactly how they feel about the church, including their desire to be listened to and their anger and distrust over the sex abuse crisis. In an encounter with thousands of youth in a Lutheran church in Tallinn, Pope Francis related to youth in a special way. He says he knows young people feel misunderstood and wants someone to accompany them without judging them. The Pope also said that while Jesus was on earth, people were unable to see that the change he came to bring was urgent and not to be delayed. Pope Francis said now youth also point this need for change out to church leaders.
Non lo vedete? E alcuni più coraggiosi hanno il coraggio di dire: non vi accorgete che nessuno vi ascolta più, né vi crede. Abbiamo davvero bisogno di convertirci, di scoprire che per essere al vostro fianco dobbiamo rovesciare tante situazioni che sono in definitiva quelle che vi allontanano.
The Holy Father explained that while preparing for the Synod of Bishops in October, young people revealed their desire for authentic leaders within the church who actually listen to them. He admitted that's not always what is found. Listening to the experiences of the people is not always pleasant, yet Pope Francis said the church wants to respond to what the youth have to say.
Li indignano gli scandali sessuali ed economici di fronte ai quali non vedono una condanna netta, il non saper interpretare adeguatamente la vita e la sensibilità dei giovani per mancanza di preparazione o semplicemente il ruolo passivo che assegniamo loro.
His words assure Christians of his awareness of these issues and the urgent need for change. Hopefully this awareness will carry into the Synod of Bishops, which is set to begin next week. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
All right, thank you so much, Melissa. Well, the Pope makes news every time he returns from a trip. During his in-flight press conference, faith and culture correspondent for Crux, Claire Jean Gravé, was one of the journalists on board the papal plane, and she joins us now. Claire, thank you so much for being here. Let's get right to it. What were the questions? What were the answers?
Well, the questions were only the ones that were sent and said by the Latvian, Estonian, and Lithuanian representatives of the press corps. So the Pope, in fact, did not take any of the questions that were asked or wanting to be asked by any other representative of the press. So he spoke a lot about the questions regarding the Baltic states, but he did touch on some issues that address and interest a lot of people in the rest of the world, especially sex abuse. Concerning sex abuse, he said that Pennsylvania should be put as an example when it comes to fighting sex abuse, because he said that in the past 70 years, improvements have been made and the church has been giving it its all to try and put the zero tolerance policy to effect.
Let's talk more about that, Claire. Earlier today, the Pope was blunt, telling young people in Estonia he understands their anger over the abuse scandals, and he also called for change. What would change look like?
He said that young people are right to be scandalized by the sex abuse crisis, as they are right to be scandalized by war and corruption. He said that corruption is at the heart of the sex abuse crisis, a corruption that touches the heart of the priests who are supposed to be taking children into heaven rather than taking advantage of them. And in this context, he said that the change must come with accepting and listening to what young people are asking for. And the Italian word is overturn, although the English translation was different, but make the appropriate changes that need to be done in the church in such a way that young people want to be a part of it and don't think that it's something that's obsolete or from the past.
Another word that the Holy Father used in that encounter, Claire, calling for the church to be converted. Why is it so important for the Pope to stress conversion?
Well, first of all, he was talking in a place where obviously faith has a very important part in an ecumenical setting. So conversion is something that struck the hearts of the people who were listening. But in many ways, he was also saying that something is wrong with the church, and the way that people are living out the faith, both within the clergy and outside, is somehow sickened. He's speaking of a corruption of the soul. So corruption in this case and conversion is the next step that needs to be taken in order for the church to really address what needs to happen for young people especially.
Claire, really quickly, Pope Francis, he's back home now. You were with him throughout the entire 4-day Baltic journey. Was it a successful mission?
It will be hard to say. Definitely this presser will be seen as disappointing for many who were hoping that Pope Francis would address these issues, especially I'm thinking of the sex abuse scandal that has been hitting hard all the church throughout the world, and especially in the United States. So we'll have to see really if this has been a success. Definitely for the people in the Baltic states, having the Pope there on such an important anniversary, the centenary of their independence, will leave a mark. And I'm confident that for the people there, that's going to be true.
All right, Claire, thank you so much. And of course, we'll be reading more about this in Crux. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Germany's top Catholic leader, Cardinal Reinhard Marx, revealed the results of a clerical sex abuse study today. The report found more than 3,600 people were abused by priests and other clergy since 1946. Most of the victims were boys. More than half were 13 or younger. Over 1,600 priests and other clergy were found to have committed abuse through 2014. The time period probed spanned 70 years. Cardinal Marx spoke during Mass this morning.
It is shameful. We are always shocked and deeply shaken to find this happened and may still happen inside our church, committed by priests and clergy, people of God who were given the task of watching over others.
Germany's Justice Minister Katharina Barley said the bishop's report is probably just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the Brooklyn Diocese has several important measures in place to help identify and prevent sexual abuse. Under the leadership of Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, the Office of Victim Assistance has been established to help individuals who come forward with allegations of abuse. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other very important resources. Also important to note, every employee of the diocese, including students, undergoes mandatory training designed to spot the signs of abuse and to stop it. The bishop meets with survivors and listens to them carefully. One result of those talks is the annual Mass of Hope and Healing in the diocese. The diocese also has a toll-free and confidential sexual abuse reporting line. That number is 888-634-4499. And for more information, go to the Diocese of Brooklyn's website, dioceseofbrooklyn.org, and click on Protecting Our Children. Bill Cosby is headed to prison. The 81-year-old was led away in handcuffs from a Pennsylvania courthouse this afternoon. The former TV star, known for decades as America's Dad, was convicted in April of drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand in 2004. Today, a judge sentenced Cosby to 3 to 10 years behind bars, turning down a request by the defense for house arrest. After the ruling was handed down, Cosby's publicist likened him to Christ. A Cosby accuser reacts to the sentence.
I'm just struggling to keep going every day, and I'm happy that the judge sentenced Bill Cosby accordingly, and I'm grateful to Andrea for standing strong.
And Mr. Cosby knows that God is watching over him. He knows that these are lies. They persecuted Jesus, and look what happened. Not saying Mr. Cosby is Jesus, but we know what this country has done to black men for centuries.
Mr. Cosby must also register as a sex offender and attend mandatory counseling. President Donald Trump addressed the UN's General Assembly today and made a point to emphasize America first. Karen Kafa reports from the United Nations.
President Trump delivering a central message to the United Nations General Assembly. He's putting America first.
America will never apologize for protecting its citizens.
Trump emphasized sovereignty as a useful avenue for progress.
The United States will not tell you how to live or work or worship. We only ask that you honor our sovereignty in return.
His message underscored by decisions to withdraw the U.S. from several multinational agreements, including the Paris Accord and the UN Human Rights Council. The president defended his decisions, many that put him at odds with key U.S. allies, including the decision to pull out of the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal.
We cannot allow the world's leading sponsor of terrorism to possess the planet's most dangerous weapons. We ask all nations to isolate Iran's regime as long as its aggression continues.
The president's speech coming less than 24 hours after he signed a new U.S.-South Korean trade deal, also as the U.S. and China hit each other with their most expensive round of tariffs yet.
I have great respect and affection for my friend, President Xi, but I have made clear our trade imbalance is just not acceptable.
Trump striking a notably different tone on North Korea than last year's address, where he threatened to, quote, totally destroy North Korea. This year, Trump spoke of a possible follow-up summit with Kim after their historic first meeting in June.
Since that meeting, we have already seen a number of encouraging measures, though much work remains to be done.
Karen Kafa, Currents News.
Before the speech, the president said Iran has acted very badly, but he didn't rule out the possibility of good relations with the country in the future.
I'm not meeting with them until they change their tune. It will happen. I believe they have no choice. We look forward to having a great relationship with Iran, but it won't happen now.
The president said sanctions against Iran would bring about change. Embattled Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh responded to allegations of sexual misconduct against him before taking the stand later this week in a highly anticipated public hearing. Omar Jimenez reports the latest.
The countdown is on for a Senate hearing that will likely decide the fate of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. And now, Republican leaders, even Kavanaugh, are strongly speaking out.
I am looking for a fair process.
The judge is facing accusations of sexual misconduct from multiple women during his time as a high school and college student, including a claim from Christine Blasey Ford, who says Kavanaugh pinned her down in a bed and attempted to remove her clothes at a party during the early 1980s. Ford is scheduled to testify on Thursday before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And in an unprecedented move, Kavanaugh gave a TV interview to Fox News Tuesday defending himself.
I've never sexually assaulted anyone, not in high school, not ever.
Kavanaugh has support from Republican leaders as well, including the president, who on Tuesday directly criticized the accusations from Ford and new allegations reported in the New Yorker this week.
He's never had any charges like this. I mean, charges come up from 36 years ago that are totally unsubstantiated. This is a con game being played by the Democrats.
But Kavanaugh's fate will ultimately come down to whether all Republican senators are on board.
Should there be a full FBI investigation into these allegations from Kavanaugh's past?
And at least one, Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, wants to know more.
It would sure clear up all the questions, wouldn't it?
McConnell has promised to hold a vote on Kavanaugh's nomination no matter what happens on Thursday. In Washington, Omar Jimenez, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. A Currents News exclusive report on two undocumented immigrants who defied the odds to get to the Encuentro. The pilgrims are heading back to the Holy Land. I'll have the story of good neighbors helping out in a time of need. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@desalesmedia.org. We'll be right back.
You cannot go to nowhere without fear.
Tonight, an exclusive report why that man, an undocumented immigrant, and his friend defied the rules to attend the Encuentro. They had traveled a long way to reach the Hispanic Catholic Summit in Texas. Currents News' Tim Harfman met them there, and he joins us now with their incredible story. Tim.
Liz, Antonio and Jose are two immigrants who had one goal. With every step they took, they remembered their fellow migrants. Antonio Mendez, seen here on the right, is from Mexico and one of nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States.
Everybody has living with fear all the time.
To raise awareness about the rights of fellow migrants, he, along with Jose Manzano, an immigrant from Mexico who tells me he has proper documents, walked nearly 30 miles from Dallas to a convention center in Grapevine, Texas. Their destination, the National Fifth Encuentro, a convention to strengthen Hispanic ministry in the church.
We need to make everybody be aware that you have rights. And more than nothing, everybody has to recognize that every human being has a dignity. It's a human being, no matter what.
It took Antonio and Jose 9 hours to complete the trip. The two just met days before the journey, but Jose wanted to join him.
For me, it's good to do this because a lot of people die on the journey to this country where there's a better opportunity.
Antonio and Jose's journey comes as a new Trump administration plan could deny green cards to migrants who use Medicaid, food stamps, and other forms of public aid. Federal law already requires those seeking green cards to prove they will not be a financial burden on the government. The new rules detail the broad range of programs that could disqualify the immigrants.
Everybody is at risk. You cannot go to nowhere without fear.
The new proposal is getting backlash from U.S. bishops. Archbishop Jose Gomez, the leader of the Catholic Church in Los Angeles, says the church stands with migrants.
We in the church are always supporting our brothers and sisters who are immigrants because they are children of God, and we want them to feel welcome.
Immigration was one of the topics at the Fifth Encuentro, where church and lay leaders discussed ways to try and help migrants. Liz.
Tim, they took such a big risk, and they still remain so hopeful, as you can see there. Is this the first time that Antonio and Jose took a journey like this?
It was for Jose. Over the last few years, Antonio has walked 3 days for the same cause to a special mass for immigrants in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, which is where he lives.
All right. Thank you, Tim. What an amazing story. More pilgrims are visiting the Holy Land. That is according to the Apostolic Nuncio to Israel, Monsignor Leopoldo Garelli. Monsignor Garelli says there is a special increase of pilgrims from Asia. Tonight, Christian kindness at its finest. The England family from North Texas lost everything. Their home flooded after historic amounts of rain fell over the weekend. But thanks to help from the community, they are finding the strength to keep going. These are the sounds of hope from an army of volunteers. Church members and weary neighbors helped clean up after floodwaters forced the England family from their home.
It was life and death, yeah. It was definitely, there were moments where I was scared that I was going to be losing family members.
Mark and Joy remember waking up to the sound of rushing water.
We literally had 10 minutes to get out.
Their escape was complicated by doors that wouldn't budge.
We said we got to go through a window. So we went to my daughter's room and we all started, we were at waist high.
I had to swim back to my wife and a couple of my kids and then, lift them up above the water and swim, because you couldn't stand, at all.
Their house is now an empty shell, a lifetime of precious memories and pictures swept away in a flash.
This was my closet.
Comforters hanging from limbs show just how high the water rose. There's now a neighbor's car propped against a tree. On this darkest of days, Mark says everyone's kindness has warmed his heart.
That's been incredibly inspirational. It's been the delight of today is to just feel the love of our community, the love of God, just surrounding us.
A powerful love indeed. Now, if you would like to help the England family recover after the flood, visit gofundme.com/England's flood lost everything. Intense weather and heavy flooding didn't stop one community from making Sunday service. In South Carolina, members of the Living Water Baptist Church rode to worship after learning their church was spared from the devastation of Hurricane Florence. The reason? Their faith helped them weather the storm.
I couldn't do it if I weren't a Christian and had faith. If it wasn't for that, I couldn't make it through this.
For residents unable to make it to the church, another location was opened. Still to come on Currents News, a smart new app for phones and tablets chock full of information about the Blessed Virgin Mary. A young girl's powerful rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. We will be right back. New data shows millennial couples are getting married and staying married. The couples are tying the knot when they're older in life and their careers are on track instead of following in the footsteps of the baby boomers who married young, then divorced. As a result, the U.S. Census Bureau says the divorce rate in the U.S. is down 18% from 2008 to 2016. Well, there's an app for everything these days, including one about Marian feasts and pilgrimages. Sean Richardson reports.
The Mary app is a phone and iPad application, acting as a resource for information on the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus. The platform is very easy to use and provides resources on doctrine, devotions, and other information about Our Lady. It includes various Marian pilgrimage sites and apparitions from across the world. One can also find out more about the different Marian feasts, sacramentals, and saints consecrated to Holy Mary. The app was produced by the authors of the popular Divine Mercy app, the Marian Fathers of the Immaculate Conception. They are a Roman Catholic male clerical religious congregation founded in Poland in 1607. The app's goal is to increase more devotion to the Blessed Mother, and it can be downloaded in English from the Apple Store and Google Play. In Rome, Sean Richardson, Currents News.
The crowd at the LA Galaxy soccer game got to hear a 7-year-old star-spangled sensation.
Oh, the land of the free. And the home of the brave.
Oh yeah, she nailed it. Malaya Emma became a viral singing sensation after her impressive performance. She won a contest giving her the opportunity to sing the national anthem at the game. Her dad says she's been singing since she was just a year old, and her dream is to one day sing with her idol, Christina Aguilera. I think that dream will come true. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.